New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee. I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. I want to talk about direct action today. I pulled out a couple books off my shelf, most notably The Activist's Handbook by Randy Shaw. I went through it, I highlighted a few things, and I just thought I'd share them with you. Because we are at a point now, we've been saying for weeks, direct action is what we need. And rallies and marches are great, but really it's only one piece of the puzzle. So I want to talk about that at length today. Because we are under a full-blown, all-out attack on our nation by a rogue administration. Every aspect of government, the environment, fair elections, on our Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. They want to cut FEMA now, emergency management. Congress has been defeated. They're going after the judicial system, the media, education, science. Civil rights are a thing of the past at this point. So, yeah, we're just under attack. And we have to react. Now, the good news is, of course, all these ridiculous executive orders hold no power in law, only in intimidation. The problem is it's working in a lot of cases. I can't believe some people, law firms and universities and private corporations, actually following these executive orders as though they're law. They're not. It's crazy. I don't understand it. But the good news is they're only executive orders. They don't actually hold any power in reality. The courts are winning so far. In another piece of good news, the resistance, well, I'm not really using that term. I read it in a headline, which is resistance is alive and well in the United States. By the way, I want to recommend this website, Waging Nonviolence. That's where I read this. Waging Nonviolence, people-powered news and analysis. It's pretty good. Yeah, the headline, resistance is alive and well in the United States. Protests of Trump may not look like the mass marches of 2017, but research shows they are far more numerous and frequent, while also shifting to more powerful forms of resistance. Okay. In fact, our research shows that street protests today are far more numerous and frequent than skeptics might suggest. All right, that's good news. In February 2025 alone, we've already tallied over 2,085 protests, which include major protests in support of federal workers, LGBTQ rights, immigrant rights, Palestinians, so it goes on and on. Yeah, the numbers are there. We're not getting the media attention. I keep shouting about that. We have to be so big that the media has no choice but to cover us. So far, they're choosing not to. Somebody pointed me to Rachel Maddow. She started her show just going around the country, and there were just dozens of really large demonstrations. 1,000 people here, 1,000 people there, another 1,000 in that city on different issues. And it was quite impressive. And the fact that she spent the time, I was grateful to Rachel Maddow for doing that. But it made me think, all this going on and not a snip of coverage. So I guess it's a good news, bad news kind of thing. We're out there. The numbers don't lie. But man, we're not getting the coverage yet, and that's so important. Some events coming up. April 1st, Students of America, rise up. Set up camp to free Palestine and win back your own free speech. About, 20 or 30 major universities listed here. All are invited. Yeah, the situation in Gaza, as bad or worse than ever. Still blocking aid, still targeting citizens, women, children, targeting hospitals, medical workers, aid workers, targeting journalists. Yeah, the war crimes just continue to pile up on Israel. So April 1st, check your local information there and join the Students of America. Reproductive justice rallies happening this week through the 29th. Check your local information. April 5th, We the People Veto Project 2025. That's the big coalition march. That's a big day. 5050.1 is in on this one. Nationwide Day of Action, 50 protests, 50 states, one movement. April 5th, noon local time here. Check your information. Yeah, that's going to be a big day, April 5th. Tesla takedown continues. Hashtag Tesla takedown. Find out what's happening where you are. I can tell you there's a global day of action planned for March 29th. 500 plus Tesla locations around the world turning out to fight Elon's illegal coup. Boycotts continue. Nestle, we're in the midst of our Nestle boycott. Again, please make that permanent. Make your Amazon boycott permanent. Coming up on the calendar, Walmart, April 7th through the 14th. Feel free to start it early. And of course, Election Day. Throughout the spring, around the nation, spring elections. So check your calendar. Make sure you get out there. Here in Wisconsin, big one. April 1st, state Supreme Court race. The winner will tip the court, right or left. So hugely consequential election here in Wisconsin. Elon Musk trying to buy the court. Tens of millions of dollars being spent lying about the reasonable, moderate candidate, what a judge ought to be. Trying to buy the court for a Trump lackey who's perfectly fine with the 1849 abortion law, which bans all abortions, regardless of health of the mother, rape, incest, nothing. No exceptions. He's just fine with that 1849 law. Sees nothing wrong with it. We have redistricting again as an issue. It always is. We in Wisconsin have 8 members of Congress in Washington, 6 of them Republicans. So that's 75% Republican representation when we're at best a 50-50 state. On most statewide elections, the Democrats come out slightly ahead. We have a Democratic governor. The last Supreme Court race was an 11-point win for the reasonable side. So yeah, at best we're a 50-50 state, but because of gerrymandering, the Republican delegation in Congress has a 75-25 advantage. So that problem will only get locked in further and maybe even made worse. So yeah, the Supreme Court. And then anything that the Orange Menace and Elon Musk have up their sleeve that might find their way to a state court, he'll be right in their pocket. He's as much as said so. So this is not one to sit out. Musk is doing his $100 bribe thing that he did before the 24 presidential election, offering voters $100 cash. All you have to do is sign his little petition. But then, of course, they use that information because you have to give your personal information in order to sign that petition. It's some sort of bogus petition about, well, we should have fair judges or something like that. Just very innocuous in and of itself. But the whole point is to get the voter information. So you're buying that. For $100 a pop, you're buying personal information that you can use in your campaign. Somehow they found a loophole. I guess it's legal. So there you go. Some events, election, and of course the big story of the week. That's, of course, the Orange Menace clown car cabinet conducting war over a public messaging app, putting American servicemen and women into grave danger, possibly, and then them lying about it. There are some Republicans who are actually showing some genuine concern. See if it makes any difference. Of course, most of them, at least for sure, Pete Hegseth should be fired, Secretary of Defense. And it only goes to show what we've been crying about since the nominating process and the Senate confirmation hearings. These guys are just jokes. One of them was in Russia at the time. Just got his phone out. Who knows who's in the room with him? Who knows what kind of hacking is happening? This whole use of the private platform, private platforms like Signal, it's right in Project 2025. It's in those training videos that they distributed. Yeah, it's always been part of the plan because they wanted to avoid any public records. There are pretty substantial rules, policies, and more importantly, law. There's the Presidential Records Act. these kinds of communications by law have to be preserved for the archives. And they know that full well. So using something like Signal isn't just reckless, it's entirely 100% intentional for that purpose. Because they want to do things behind closed doors. And if you see these training videos, if you read Project 2025, they're just blatant about it. That's the thing about Project 2025. They hide nothing. It's just right there in black and white. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens with that story. It's moving fast. Funny thing for me was seeing Jeffrey Goldberg put in the spotlight like this. Of course, he's the journalist who was accidentally or somehow got onto this chat. Because I've been watching Washington Week on PBS since I was a kid. Since, I guess, Robert McNeil was the first host I remember. They've had several since, including Gwen Ifill and Robert Costa. And now it's Jeffrey Goldberg. And you know when you watch somebody on TV every week, people on television become very familiar, right? It feels like they're your friend. So it was funny to see him out of context. I know him from Washington Week, and he's a very good journalist. He's solid in every way, just respected by his peers, and he also has a wry, dry sense of humor. And being a regular viewer, like I said, you know how that feels? You feel like you're buddies. So when I saw him popping up in the news like this, oh, look, it's Jeffrey Goldberg. I know him. And for me, the bottom line is just more proof, as though we needed it, that they're not serious. They're just jokes. Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth, Stephen Miller, for God's sakes. John Ratcliffe, the director of the CIA. If you remember his story, back in the first Trump administration, he was nominated as, what was it? I think it was Director of National Intelligence. I forget the position. Yeah, I think that's what it was. And Congress just wasn't having it, including most Republicans. It's like, no, he's just a hack politician, extreme right-wing member of Congress with no real experience in anything except being a loudmouth. Just not a serious person. And he was laughed out of that position as nominee for DNI. And then the Orange Menace, in the last year of his first administration, brings the guy back, manages to get him through. So he had like less than a year in that job. And that's the total of his experience. And now he's the director of the Central Intelligence Agency. He's a joke. He's like the rest of them. Steve Witkoff, the guy who was in Russia during this meeting with his little cell phone, is a real estate guy. He's got zero political experience or expertise, let alone anything about international security or, my God. He's just a real estate guy. And his main job now, he got a new little title added to his portfolio, as they say. He's the personal liaison between the Orange Menace and Putin. Yeah, he's the designated Putin boy. And he's in on the meeting, on his phone, unprotected, in Russia. Jesus. All right. I'll let you go to other sources for the rest of the big news on that story. Let's talk about direct action. As I said, I pulled my copy of Activist Handbook off the shelf and gave it an extra read. So I just want to look at this today. The recent movements that have gotten some real traction, Black Lives Matter, Occupy Wall Street, groups like PETA and Greenpeace, Code Pink, over the last many years, able to really make some noise. There have been successes over the years that we can look to for inspiration and for ideas. And I think we're absolutely at the time now where we need to start doing things like stopping traffic. Disruption. That's the key word. We have to be disruptive. Shut down factories. Shut down places of business with sit-ins, with die-ins, and my favorite, teach-ins, which is basically a sit-in where you invite experts on the issue and information is shared. As long as you're going to be sitting there occupying a building, you might as well learn something while you're there, right? Learn about the issue you're protesting. Learn about alternatives for when we win. There were great protests over in Madison, Wisconsin state capitol, during the Governor Scott Walker years when he was attacking unions. There were daily sing-alongs in the rotunda. You know, make it fun. Have a sing-along. It was great. I love the idea of flash mobs, which this sing-along thing sort of was. You just show up unannounced all of a sudden before security can do anything about it. They look around and, oh, the rotunda is filled with 500 people, and they're all singing, "This land is my land," you know? So these are all just very simple ideas, simple direct actions that people have taken over the years, and they've worked. Occupy congressional offices. Occupy state capitol buildings, other government offices. As I said, rallies and demonstrations are always great. They're especially good, I think, when you've chosen your location, right in front of the White House, right in front of the Supreme Court building, right in front of the government building that Elon is trying to bust into with his Lost Boys. And we saw that story a few weeks ago. He couldn't get in because the protesters got there first. Holding vigils. Those are powerful. Those are visually powerful. Holding a vigil, nighttime, quiet, everybody with a candle. Yeah, it's good video. Good video for the news people. The Activist Handbook used several case studies. In one of them, I forget which, they scattered thousands and thousands of fake bills, $1, $5, and $10 bills, bearing slogans of the movement. And some of this might sound silly, but when you put it all together, really effective. And again, these case studies are in the book because, in the end, they were victorious. It's baseball season, folks. Opening day in 30 different cities in this country, 30 different baseball teams are going to have their home opener within the next week or so. What a great time to unfurl a big old banner. Maybe make a little more noise, a little more disruption. What better spot to get attention than at the home opener? There have been mass die-ins. We've seen that so far in this movement. Chalk outlines. And there are certainly issues in our current movement that are life and death. Oh, they're absolutely life and death. We know for a fact that the gutting of USAID has already resulted in deaths. We know for a fact that the gutting of public health initiatives is going to cost lives. In some of these movements, constant street theater, which I think is wonderful. Again, attention. We are in an attention world. It's been called the attention economy. It's also absolutely vital for media coverage, which we're not getting. Yeah, constant street theater. I'm a great admirer of groups like the San Francisco Mime Troupe. Been around forever, doing political activist theater. One of my university professors back in the day was a former Guerrilla Girl activist street theater troupe. Great admirer. Yeah, the unfurling of large banners. I love that. You know, cover up the whole side of a building. As I said, this is a little bit dated. I know this is old school stuff, but you can update these things too. The projections onto buildings. We talked a couple of weeks ago about the projections onto the back of the Tesla, which has that perfect sort of movie screen back bumper, right? That flat, silver, perfect to receive projections. And there's a little device out there that from your car you can project anything you want onto the back of that Tesla. I love that. I'm talking about the Cybertruck now. Yeah, it's got that big flat silver panel on the back. What else can you do? Disrupt church services. Yeah, it's Easter coming up here. Lay down in the aisles. Chain yourself to the pew. Oh, the old chain yourself thing. The Atlanta Cop City demonstrators were big on that. Sierra Club is big on that. Chain yourself to a nuclear reactor. There are just so many tried and true techniques. I mentioned the 30 home openers in baseball. We're also in the middle of March Madness. Who's going to get more attention than somebody who makes a lot of noise and does something outrageous in the middle of a March Madness basketball game. This is the kind of stuff we need. We're under attack. The nation is under attack. This is what we need. I'm ready to start seeing it. The NBA playoffs are starting pretty soon. We're still in school, students, colleges, high schools. We're in session here for at least another month or two here. We got all of April, most of May. Earth Day is coming up. Here's an idea that I liked a lot. If there's some sort of conference or convention happening where you've already got this sort of committed audience, they're all in on sort of the same big thing, right? Like we recently had the CPAC conference, the conservatives, or maybe you'll have a particular industry getting together that you want to protest, if it's oil and gas or fast fashion, which is a horrible thing, needs to go away. Yeah, find that audience that already has some sort of role in the issue. So storming a convention center, crashing events, mount the stage, announce your grievances, announce your plan, heckle speakers. And all of a sudden you got this public dialogue going, even though you weren't invited, right? You got this direct confrontation that they're not ready for. Of course, you got the regular phone calls, which we should be doing daily. The whole thing is you got to overwhelm your target and stop them from doing normal business. You have to disrupt normal business. That's where we are now. So those are just a few ideas that I highlighted from the Activist Handbook. Now, you can't do this on your own. It's all about organizing. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Plenty of organizations out there. Find one, join it. Because we need people organized. We need to get in line with office holders, stakeholders. We have to build coalitions. Good example of that is, say you do hold a sit-in or a die-in or some sort of direct action occupation. You got to come in with some specific demands. And it's really helpful if you're already in alliance with a member of Congress who's written a particular bill that you can advocate for. So you're not just yelling about, oh, you're bad and please be fair to us. Because let's be honest, that's where most of us are. We're not experts. So that's why it's so important to find the group, join the group, share expertise, learn while you're doing it. And yeah, this alliance is really powerful. That way you can get up at your protest, you can say, pass House Bill number 23, which says ABC XYZ. We won't leave until at least 20 members of Congress pledge to support that bill. Yeah, specific demands. That's what you can do when you're organized. Organizations and movements can attract young people, which is so... I can't think... I'm no historian, but just off the top of my head, I can't think of one movement that went anywhere without young people. Absolutely have to attract young people. I'm an old guy. I'm looking at an old book. So of course all of these ideas can be updated, but they are solid ideas. And they're proven winners. The whole sort of old-fashioned idea of think globally, act locally certainly applies. Local direct action on national issues would get you press coverage. Going through an organization will attract new participants. We got to grow the movement. Talked a minute ago about the audience you're after. One good strategy, for example, I forget which one it was. I think it was ACT UP in San Francisco during the AIDS crisis. Big flash mob at the Opera House disrupted a performance of the opera. The audience was chosen carefully, an economically powerful crowd. So you publicly confront powerful people in business, in politics, in the arts. The point is choosing your target, and an organization can help you do that. And it takes some planning, and it takes some smarts. You got to rigorously analyze your choice of targets. Are you going to win any popularity contests doing this? No, that's not the point. A quote from the book, Activists must sometimes use tactics that may not produce direct results, but that are necessary for organizational growth, morale, and development. Yeah, I thought that was pretty good. So you choose your tactics carefully, you choose your targets carefully, but you don't let that paralyze you. You don't let that scare you. Take chances. Even if it doesn't work in the moment, it's going to inspire the people in your group. Actions that go too far, so to speak, do not necessarily damage the fundamental message. So don't be afraid. In one case, they talked about activists who raised a very uncomfortable fact during what was supposed to be more of a back-patting affair, as they put it. I can think of a perfect example. Last week when I went to the town hall meeting of my representative, Gwen Moore, that's kind of what it was. It was a back-patting affair. Everybody was kind of on the same page. Oh, they're bad, we're good, here's what we're trying to do. And it would have been great for an activist to stand up in that moment of everyone patting each other on the back with some very uncomfortable facts and saying, listen, we're not doing enough, maybe we can do this, which actually kind of happened. I told you I'm going to put that together for the weekend show. I'll play the tape for you. There was one guy who stood up and raised a little hell, and I thought he was great. But I like that point. If you're choosing a target, maybe sometimes it's people on your own side who are a little too happy with themselves. And man, we've got a lot of that on the so-called left or the Democrats or the liberals or the progressives or whatever you want to call them. On this side of the spectrum, at least the sane people who aren't crazy MAGA weirdos, in our coalition, we have a lot of complacency and we'll have a lot of back-patting. So I think that's an important point. When you're strategizing, you want to force a response. I said earlier, if you catch them off guard, you force them to respond. And so, in turn, then you need to be well informed because they're going to challenge you. Well, you're just a protester. You don't know. So choose your role carefully. If you're really ready to go, if you're ready to have that debate on the fly in front of 1,000 people or 100 people or 20 people, by all means, you be the one shouting down the expert. If that's not you, then you be the one in the background coordinating logistics, right? So that's something else an organization can do. It can put people in proper roles. Yeah, this is a big thing, being able to force that response and being able to really know your issue. Knowledge is power. To acquire and disseminate information should always be a big part of any plan. That's why I keep harping on teach-ins. I love it. Also disseminating information not only to each other, but of course to the press. Another point I think is important. Organizations need more than what you'd call paper memberships. You can have a lot of sympathy from the public. You can have memberships. You can even have paid dues. That's all fine. That's all great. But to have direct action, you have to attract the people with the energy. Again, the young people, the ones who are really going to get out there onto the street, into the buildings, into the breach of these protests, demonstrations, and direct actions. It's all well and good to have 10,000 paid members, but if they're just sitting at home, yeah, direct action needs people, needs bodies. You and I have talked a lot, and I continue to believe that even though we're in this very digital age, I believe strongly that no movement is going to be successful unless and until we put our bodies on the line. Digital strategies, promotion, there are all sorts of ways we can use that world. But I think it's a very limited proportion of the movement. So that's why I'm not really shy about using an older book like the Activist Handbook. I think most or all of this is totally legit, totally relevant. We need bodies, minds, and souls. It's going to take some courage. Direct action takes courage. Muster it up. If you haven't got it, lick envelopes. We need everybody. No shame, no judgment. Make phone calls, write postcards. Just add your body to the number of bodies in the march. hold your sign. Some of the more abrasive direct actions are going to take some real courage. Also, the many, many reasons we need to organize. It's the only way we're going to outlast the opposition. This is going to take some staying power. We can't rest until we win. Unless you want to live in a dictatorship, which is where we're rapidly headed. I say without exaggeration. So only through being organized can we create this kind of staying power. We have to outlast our opposition. And that's no small task because they've been at this for a very long time. It predates Reagan, but certainly since Reagan, the right wing has been working toward this moment. And they're feeling pretty fat and happy right now, celebrating some pretty big victories. And I can't blame them. They've had some pretty big damn victories. So the only way to have that kind of staying power is through organization and a constant barrage. Not just, one and you're done. No, a constant barrage of demonstrations, of rallies, of sit-ins, of boycotts, and others of the more sort of confrontational direct attacks that we've been talking about. Whatever we do has to be meaningful. It has to be strategic and savvy. Takes some planning, takes some smarts, takes a coalition, takes some collaboration. And we got to have fun doing it. It needs to be fun. It needs to be exhilarating. We need to enjoy this. Back in the day, there were songs. Oh my God, the songs, the protest songs. This is before my time. Musicians, help us out. Let's all get singing the same songs again. But yeah, any kind of progressive organizations, constituencies, any kind of hope for social change, organizations need to have a good time. And they need to have a direct action component. It's all about direct action at this point. It's got to be the central instrument. We got to build networks so that, you have maybe a one-day big nationwide protest. April 5th is a big day coming up. But if you're organized and if you're spread out over the nation and you got chapters all over the place and you got small towns and big towns and rural places, and yeah, you have the big one-day national protest and then you have 1,000 follow-up protests the very next day. That you can do through organization. What else did I see in here? Oh, the element of surprise. That's always nice. So yeah, like a planned sit-in or a flash mob or something like that, keep it under wraps. So the target of your protest doesn't get wind of it and they can, get out of Dodge or at least, be briefed and ready with their little BS statement. Yeah, catch them off guard. Make them respond in real time. There was the example of that San Francisco movement I talked about, of the disabled folks. They had a sit-in that went 25 days. The authorities tried to starve them out. They wouldn't let anybody feed them. But different organizations were able to get food to them. And within a couple of weeks, Safeway, grocery stores, and McDonald's were bringing them food because they gained public sympathy. Yeah, it's all about alliances. You got the seniors, the Gray Panthers over here, and a youth group over here, an environmental justice group over there, and a prisoners' rights group over there. And you build coalitions, you build relationships. And then when it really hits the fan, you got people at your back. As I said earlier, create alliances with office holders. We got a handful of Justice Democrats and independents who will have your back. And they have inside power. They can help you disrupt. Yeah, in that San Francisco example, nobody broke ranks. All the different organizations held together. The administration couldn't pick off certain groups. Didn't work. And in the meantime, they couldn't conduct regular business until this issue was solved. Almost a month long this sit-in happened. There's some 3D chess that has to happen too. You have to, in any negotiation, you have to give your opponent room to, how do I put it? Give them an escape route. In other words, be able to know when to take the win and let your opponent off the hook with some dignity remaining. Yeah, it'd be fun to just crush your opponent every time, but if you get a win, you got to take it. And this is very strategic thinking. This is beyond what I could handle. I wouldn't be that part of the organization probably. I'd be the guy behind the mic just yelling. That's more my role. One other strategy was to combine events. So in other words, maybe you have an ongoing sit-in, like this thing went for 25 days. And then one of those nights, a bunch of other folks have a vigil in front of the White House. And then you release a strong letter or a press release or letter to particular office holders. You have meetings with stakeholders. You have meetings with office holders. In other words, there's all these different things going on at the same time. So combine events. Modern advertising has taught us that to get your message across, you got TV ads, you got radio ads, you got digital ads, you got word of mouth, you got signs on the subway, signs on park benches, all these different platforms with the same message. Advertisers have known this forever. So let's do this thing. Let's do this. Some kind of small ball practical stuff. Sounds corny, but mottos and slogans work. Make America great again. It's a goddamn great slogan. Silence equals death. That was the ACT UP slogan in the fight against AIDS. So yeah, t-shirts, posters, stickers, handouts. Again, I know we're in a digital age. Fine. You can have your memes all you want, and I'm not going to say they're not effective. But I want hand-to-hand physical contact. I've lived in both worlds. I've lived in the digital world. I lived in the 70s. Direct eye-to-eye contact, physical touch, hand me a flyer. We got to go old school. Yes, of course, we can have a digital component. I wouldn't think of dismissing that, but it can never replace real person-to-person contact. Let's finish with something we talk about a lot around here, and that's media attention. Massive police response will elevate the significance of any event you're in. Guaranteed media attention if you get the cops involved. Any sort of graphic artists, get out there. And here's where memes and social media can play a role, for sure. But yeah, graphics, creativity, slogans, not incidental at all, central. One of the reasons long-term action is important, like a sit-in, something or an occupation, something that lasts a while, that can draw local and national media. You're still there. The editors are looking for some new angle, some way to cover this. All of a sudden they're talking with individuals. We're getting individual profiles. So yeah, long-term can attract media. One good strategy I read about organization, choose your subjects carefully. That is, who do you want to put on the front line? Who do you want being interviewed? Who do you want the photos taken of? They gave one example of a housing crisis where the action was people squatting in vacant housing. So they put mothers and their children in front of the cameras, not three big, tough, single guys, right? So be strategic on who you're putting in front of that microphone, in front of that camera. And you won't be seen as just a troublemaker, but you'll be seen as an advocate for a noble cause. That's what we have to break through. Not just angry people yelling and holding signs, but relatable people with a relatable cause. So, just a few ideas from Randy Shaw's classic, The Activist's Handbook. First written in the 96, I think, several updates over the years. And as I've said, I've lived in both worlds now, and this advice is solid. So find your organization, go to indivisible.org, go to 5050.one, lots of other organizations out there, and be part of it. Nobody's asking you to be a hero, but we got lots of room for heroes these days, if that's what you want to do. Again, stay in your lane, stay happy, have fun with this. That's the other thing, too, that needs to be repeated over and over and over again. The greatest part of this whole story is when you get organized with other people, you're going to be happy. You're going to be invigorated. You're going to be inspired. You're going to feel the humanity. And you're going to have fun. Maybe we should devote a whole episode on just how to have fun. That's a good idea. Make a program note. Somebody put together put together that episode. All right. So, this episode of The Log can be heard on any of your favorite platforms, or better yet, go to the website, charlesburcell.com. All episodes are there. Thanks to our flagship terrestrial station, River West Radio, riverwestradio.com. Contact me, Charles Burcell, at Gmail. Follow on Facebook. Peter Donalds wrote and performed the theme song. Okay, I'll see you out there.